Kia ora and g'day. We are strolling down the road to Tokyo and boy, do we have a great guest lined up for you. Silver medalist at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast just 2 years ago, Alana Barber, race walker. Thanks for your time today.
Oh, thanks for allowing me to be here.
Allowing you to be here. It's an absolute pleasure to see you. Look, let's start off first of all by talking about the year of 2020, because for so many people it's been a horror show, and I'm sure for you and your preparation for the Olympic Games it's been exactly the same, maybe even worse. Put it into your own words. What has 2020 thrown at you?
Everyone's got their own story, don't they? For me, I just done New Zealand track and field champs, so I did a great time for 3,000 and the 10,000, and I was ready to peak for a race in Japan. So we're talking middle of March now, and the pandemic, you know, we've heard of COVID, it's going around the world, and so we've heard a little bit about it, but so I'm aware of things, but no, I'm focused on competing in Japan and really, cracking that Olympic qualifying time. So that was the plan. And then a week after Nationals, that's when the lockdown was announced. The event organisers of this race in Japan contacted me and said that they're not having any international athletes competing. They're just going to have local athletes. And so my first thought was, okay, well, how am I going to qualify for the Olympics? If I can't go to this race, I'm in the peak form, and sometimes you can't keep that peak form for too long. So I was focused on just thinking, what can I do? But then I think also the reality at one point did sink in that actually there's something far greater than sports going on. This is a potential
global pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's affecting people's health, that people are dying from. This is more than sports. So that reality did sink in, and then it made me then think, okay, it's mental health is now so important. It's not just keeping up my physical health or thinking about my being in peak shape. It's actually just thinking potentially we might not be going to the Olympics this year. And that thought did cross my mind. There was a period of just uncertainty, which was probably the worst.
So how did you deal with that uncertainty?
Well, I think that's when the people around you, your team, becomes extremely important in times like this, and that relationship you've built up with them. So my partner, who's also my coach, was really important during that time, just to comfort me, and I was comforting him too.
But that's very difficult for you to do because, correct me if I'm wrong, he lives in Germany?
That's correct.
And when was the last time you saw him?
The last time I saw him was more than a year ago.
More than a year ago. So you're talking about having your family and your partner around you during this difficult time, and he's half a world away. That must have been extremely difficult to deal with.
Video calling is like a blessing, so there was a lot of video calling.
Well, I'm asking actually in the past tense, but it's something that you're still going through, like when are you going to see this guy again?
Yeah, we're just not sure, so every day we're video calling. It's actually, I've learnt a lot about how important it is to stay present in the time and just enjoy the time with your partner, even if it means, I think because we were physically distant, we had to make up for it another way. So it meant that our conversations, our video calls became really important, and nothing else in the world mattered during that time that I'd be talking to him. So everything was put aside, and we really valued each other's time because that was all we got. So it's actually made our relationship stronger.
Wow. Okay, you must be just hanging out to see him again, though.
Yeah. As soon as it's safe to go overseas, I'll be taking a flight to Europe and seeing him in Germany. Yeah.
100%. Hope it doesn't collide with the Tokyo Games. All of a sudden they open up the airways that you can go here, there and everywhere. Kind of got this race that I've been preparing for.
Yeah. Well, he's an athlete too, and he's also aiming for the Olympics. So, if that's the case, then hopefully I'll see him there too.
Yeah, 100%. How close did you come to just walking away and saying, listen, this delay and the current situation that the world is facing, it's just too much. Maybe it's time to hang up the walking shoes and get into the real world and get a real job.
Yeah, there was a period of time where I thought about things, reflected, and I think that's some of the positive things with the pandemic was that it just forced people to just sit down and think, okay, am I doing things that I want to do? What do I still want to achieve? What things that I could be doing that I'm not doing right now? And I thought about those things, and when I took away all the frills that race walking provided, and I went out during lockdown, I'd walk my local streets, which I never used to do. I'd drive somewhere in the countryside or beautiful places.
Why do you do that?
Are
you worried about what people are going to be thinking as you're striding down the street?
Well, the footpaths aren't the best with all the driveways and things like that. Okay. The cars, I like to get away from cars. And yeah, there's that. It's a bit weird to be in the middle of like this residential area, be wearing your crop top and your shorts out, wiggling your hips. And I think
I haven't seen that before driving around the Auckland streets, so yeah, it'd be a first.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it would be a first for a lot of people. And actually during the lockdown, that was a first. People were seeing me out because I took to the streets just outside my house, and my neighbours were looking out the window being like, okay, the pandemic's really got to her.
Yeah, she's gone crazy.
But I actually realised I didn't care. Like, I loved doing the sport. I loved the rhythm that I felt when I got into the mindset of race walking, and it didn't matter if the neighbours thought I was crazy. It didn't matter about those things. I still loved the sport for the fundamentals, and I still had that passion to want to be better. And I think that's what the biggest thing that's kept me in the sport is the curiosity, like how fast can you move, following these rules of race walking, and that's still what inspired me to want to continue.
Wonderful. Well, we're all glad that you are going to continue. And you say, how fast can you move? So at the NZ Road Race Championships that you mentioned earlier, I think your time for the 20K was something like an hour 40 and 44 seconds?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so that wasn't a great time for me because I'm in the middle of training at the moment. But
all things considered, how happy were you with that time? Because it's been such a long time since you raced.
It was a fact of just getting out there and racing. It wasn't about time for me. It was getting the feeling of what it feels like to race, feeling uncomfortable but being okay with that. It's yeah.
When it comes to the qualifying mark for Tokyo, I think it's 35 seconds down on what it was in Rio. How confident are you of nailing that time of 1 hour 31 for the 20K?
Yeah, it's 30 seconds away from my PB, so I've got to go more than 30 seconds quicker. And I did that PB in ideal conditions in China with great competition when I was with my coach, and I was peaking. So if you take away those things and because potentially I'll have to do a qualifying time in New Zealand if I can't travel. So I've got to do it probably by myself because no one can go the pace I need to be going. And in New Zealand, and then I've got to hope for it to be a perfect day, perfect conditions, and a good course to do that on. So yeah, it's extra challenging, but isn't that exciting? Like that's what the whole thing of sports is. It
might excite you, but it scares the shit out of me.
Okay, well maybe that's good that you're not trying to go for the for the Olympics.
I'd be a terrible Olympian. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I mean, you could kind of maybe set up something like. When was it? Was it last year? Eliud Kipchoge? And he was trying to run the marathon under 2 hours. You could have like a vehicle set up, driving at the pace that you need to over the course of 1 hour 31.
I did think about this, but that's not an actual official world record because he broke that. But because of all those things that helped him out, that made it not an official world record.
Right.
Where this is an official race that I've got to do. I can't have pacemakers around me blocking the wind, or a vehicle with I can't have a line on the track.
Surely we can make allowances. I mean, it's 2020, for goodness sake.
Okay, well, yeah, that would be awesome.
I'm going to lobby the IOC on your behalf.
Thank you.
I'll do that immediately after this.
It's been well worth my time being here then.
Yeah, of course. Hey, so when you look at what you've been doing over the last couple of years, silver medal, congratulations on that, on the Gold Coast. The next year, 2019, Doha, racing in 31-degree heat, 91% humidity after midnight. Are these sorts of experiences just going to help immeasurably when you get to Tokyo?
Yeah, I mean, Tokyo's forecast to be very hot, like hot and humid conditions. So actually the race walks and the marathons have been moved to Sapporo because of the harsh conditions that Tokyo has. So yeah, it just provides extra challenges which you need to prepare for in your preparation. And I've had that experience of Doha and Gold Coast. So I've got a thorough plan, strategies that I can use to make me prepare as well as possible for those conditions. Part of my research has involved that I've been a participant for, where I've been given a core temperature little pill that I've had to put inside me. I'm not going to tell you how that got inside me.
Okay.
And that's measured what my core temperature is doing through training, through racing, and it's really interesting. And then strategies which forces your body to cool down. And this is all tracked through this pill. And
fascinating.
Yeah, and then
the science just continues to evolve. How we get better as athletes. I mean, you've been in the business long enough. You must have seen all those changes occur. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and with the Olympics being in Japan, we know that these conditions are going to be brutal. So we've been given plenty of warning, and I'm sure there's a lot of other teams around the world that are also working on, the science behind making sure that the core temperature it stays as low as possible, because we know that when it gets high, you've got the chance of, if it gets too high, then you've got the chance of collapsing or slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about last year's World Champs in Doha. Starting after midnight in that heat, that humidity, what kind of mind-bending, altering experience was that for you?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I probably will never ever go, be in that kind of situation ever again. If people haven't been to the Middle East before, so don't know what that temperature feels like.
I haven't. I've never been
well, when you're baking a cake in the oven, and it's up to 180, open up the oven, and that feeling of that warmth on your skin when you open up the oven, that's what it felt like. But then picture yourself exercising in that.
For an hour and a half, going 20 Ks?
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, trying to go as fast as you can, and also with race walking, thinking about the rules as well, making sure that you're complying with the race walking rules. Because when your body starts to fatigue, it's not like running where you can still try and get to the finish line.
Yeah.
But potentially, if you're fatiguing in race walking, you might not be able to keep that leg straight. And then you might get DQ before you get to the finish line. So,
jeez,
yeah.
Sounds punishing. Here's me thinking you're just going for a quiet stroll along the boulevard.
No.
You got all that to consider going through your head.
But that's what makes the sport exciting, is that when you're, even as spectators, when you're watching it, that person that's leading by 5 minutes might not win. They've still got to get to the finish line. They've still got to comply with these rules. And then with environmental factors that you throw in there, are they actually going to last?
Yeah.
And that's what makes the sport exciting in some ways.
How long did it take you to recover from that?
A long break.
Yeah.
Not a lot of
lie
race
down?
walking. Yeah, lie down. In fact, I got taken off in a wheelchair. I was exhausted at the end, and
You wouldn't have been the only one, right?
That's right. They actually had wheelchairs for everyone. They have enough wheelchairs because they have to be prepared for all the athletes that cross the finish line being, needing medical attention.
Of course.
So yeah, I got taken away. I knew I was going to be okay, but the best thing was that I got to sit down in a wheelchair and I didn't have to walk anymore. so that was it. And then I got got taken to medical, and I lied down, and I was just exhausted, and I needed that.
Yeah. Was anybody like in a worse off position than you?
Yeah, there were people that had heat stroke, and so throwing up, and it can be quite awful. There's anyone that's seen, particularly a 50k race walk, when you're in those kind of conditions for that period of time, which is, you're talking, sometimes over 4 hours. It's pretty brutal, and you really learn a lot about your body and what it can do in extreme conditions.
Well, we learned a lot about what you can do in 2018 on the Gold Coast, taking that silver medal. What did that mean to you?
words can't really describe it. It's, I mean, what made it so awesome was as well that it was quite local. You know, Gold Coast, it's not far away from New Zealand, so there were a lot of New Zealand supporters, and the biggest thing that my family was there, usually they're in their mid-70s, so for them to travel to you know, different parts of the world, it's just not possible for them. So having it.
Did I hear that your dad hadn't left the country in something like 40 years?
Yeah, over 40
before that?
years. Yeah, over 40 years he hadn't got on a plane.
That's incredible.
To leave the country. Yeah. So he had an excuse for all the other races, but I was like, come on, like this is the Gold Coast.
Hop, skip, and a jump across the ditch.
Yeah, and
let's go.
And I was so happy that he was able to come across, because travelling isn't something that he usually enjoys. So for him to make that exception, and that was the best part, that it wasn't just winning for the country, winning for myself, but it was winning with them watching me just there. And I heard every time I did each lap, because each lap's only 1 kilometre long, so I passed them 20 times, and each time I heard my parents yelling. And just knowing that they were there was just the best.
In the post-walk comments, I remember reading or hearing you say that you kind of owed that performance, the ability to push on, to two guys. One was your father, and the other was like an unknown Kiwi guy who just kept on cheering you on. Have you found out since who he was?
No, but he said very simple words, and that was, just keep going. And that's exactly what I needed to hear just then, at that time when you're really struggling, and you're getting hot, you're getting tired. I had hit the wall at 15k. I was starting to cramp in my groin area, so I was worried that my body wasn't coping well, and I was in a position where the person behind me was quite a distance. So this man was right, you just need to keep going, and that's what I did.
Wherever you are, we thank you very much for the silver medal that Alana Barber, where is it? Do you wear it around the home sometimes, or is it like on the mantelpiece?
I have a little mantelpiece with all my collection of medals, along with my mum's medals too, that she's collected over the years too, when she was running. So it's a shared mantelpiece.
Well, let's talk about your mother, because she was a New Zealand representative, ran the 800 in the 74 Commonwealth Games in Christchurch. What kind of motivation did she provide for you to do similar things?
Well, the biggest thing was just understanding. Like she knows exactly what it's like being an athlete, training every day, what it takes to be the best. So having someone supporting you growing up was great. Although she was never a pushy mother. Like she would always be like, you can do the run, you can do the 800-metre run. I mean, that was my favourite, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be your favourite, but I'll just, show you the club to go to, drive you to the race, and if you happen to want to do it, that's great. And if you don't win, you're not coming home.
You're walking home. Maybe that's what set you up for a successful race walking career.
And endurance events, because the practicality of it. No, it was great having her. That's why I think I loved the sport before I actually decided to commit to it, which I think is important. And maybe kids that are pressured earlier on, they don't find the love for it first, which is important.
How often do you sit down, I don't know if you've got like a VCR or VHS player, do you watch your mum's performances like on tape at home?
No.
Can you find them on YouTube at all?
No, I'm not sure. I've never tried. It's not. It's not. I think it's not that one particular moment when you're competing. It's about the experiences you get along the way and those stories that you have to tell. So it's the stories that I hear about her and John Walker, and the fun that they would have being stupid at training.
Please go on, Alana. Do you want to share a couple of those stories?
Actually, that's right. My mum warned me not to leave the house.
Don't blab too much.
So, and just she was in a time in the 70s where they were the best, our best middle distance runners, and there was just so much depth in the country. So hearing those stories is amazing.
Must be magical. Who did you look up to?
I mean, quite a few people, mostly my mum. So she learned
But in terms of race walking,
Yeah.
like, you know, are there any? I mean, Craig Barrett is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, and Craig Barrett is someone that I did look up to. The Kuala Lumpur Commonwealth Games is probably the most vivid memory I have, and that was before I was race walking. I didn't know a lot about the sport, but watching him compete was really inspirational, because that was the time he collapsed.
Yeah.
5 minutes away. He was 1K away from the finish line. He was 5 minutes ahead of the second, and that really stuck with me as something that this is such a challenging event. And what I remember about it mostly was that he was trying to get up. So he'd collapsed and he was trying to get up. So his body was done, but mentally he was still wanting to get to that finish line. And I mean, that's so powerful to have that drive to want to just continue, even though your body's had enough, can't do any more.
The sad thing for me from that is when you fast forward 4 years down the track, and Craig wins the silver medal in Manchester, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. But nobody talks about that. They only talk about the struggle that he had, and I think that's a great shame, because people haven't recognised the success. They only go to the failure that he experienced in Kuala Lumpur.
I don't actually see it as failure, because so that experience that he went through was so memorable. So I understand that people do remember that more than him winning the silver. I mean, at the end of every race, someone wins gold, someone wins silver, and someone wins bronze. But not everyone will push themselves to that maximum limit, be mentally still wanting to continue, and their body just doesn't cooperate, and that's why we remember that.
Well, whatever way you look at it, I mean, it's one of the great moments in New Zealand sport, isn't it? 50 kilometres. We're talking about equality more now than ever before. Women can do what men can do. Apparently, it's like a news flash, but I think we've known it for a long time. Slowly but surely, the wheels of change are turning. And Quentin Roux, who you mentioned earlier, New Zealand's male participant, he's trying to lobby the IOC and say, well, look, if it's good enough for men to race 50 kilometres at the Olympics, then why can't the women? What do you think of that idea, and do you support it?
I completely support it. If the opportunity is there for men, why can't it be there for women?
Yeah.
Opportunities are so important, and equalising that opportunity is extremely important. So I support it, and I think that endurance events are women's strong point. And I think that you'll see the gap close in an event like 50K, the difference between the first man and the first woman, because women are good at endurance, good with that longer pain. I don't know that.
Does it all come back to childbirth or something, Alana? I don't know.
But possibly. So, and I think that if you open that event up, you'll see some women that'll really come out and be strong at that event. For me personally...
Yeah, would you do it? Would you do it?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
I think it's the idea of because I do the 20 kilometres and then having to double that and a little bit more just is mind-boggling. It's a different event. It's a real... I mean, it tests something else.
I think if somebody came to me and said, hey, Goran, can you do 2.5 times the amount of work that you're doing right now? I'd be like, nah, go away. Come on. Please.
Exactly, when you put it like
Be reasonable.
That. Yeah.
Be reasonable.
Exactly.
So just do what you're doing and do it really well.
Yeah.
When it comes to Tokyo next year, what does success at that event look like for you? Is it standing on the podium? Is it a top 10, top 20 finish? What is it?
The most important thing is that I do my very best, that I'm prepared as possible, I'm as prepared as possible, and that I do myself and my country proud. That's always what I think about. I don't think about the end result. In Commonwealth Games, I never thought about the medals. I just thought about being as prepared as possible, and pushing myself hard as possible. I focus more on the process rather than the end result. Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever happens, I hope it goes really well for you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.